This is a message from a Syrian to the American people. The media is trying to make you believe that we Syrians are sad to see US soldiers leave. Your media is lying to you. Syrians oppose both the US and Turkish illegal occupation of our country. None were invited. No matter what the circumstances, the end of the illegal occupation of sovereign Syria is a great thing. Trump announced the pullout, but the neocons and the neoliberals are trying to stop it. They want to keep US soldiers in Syrian oil fields. They are trying to fool you into believing that ending US occupation is a tragedy and that Kurds will be abandoned to genocide. The truth is, the neocons don't care about the Kurds. Their greatest fear is that the Kurds would reconcile with the Syrian government and mount a joint defense against the Turkish invasion. Their greatest fear is that their plans to regime change, divide, and balkanize Syria would be ruined. They haven't even tried to hide this. You can see it in their headlines and in the words of Lindsey Graham. They would rather every last Kurdish fighter get slaughtered by Turkey than have them ally with Assad and make Syria a whole country again. The people in northeast Syria want the Syrian army to come in and protect them. They are celebrating right now at the prospect. US soldiers are not protecting the Kurds. They're just getting caught in the crossfire. They cannot even fire back at Turkey. It's their NATO ally after all, and they have their military bases there. But the Syrian army has no qualms about firing on Turkey. In fact, they already have been. You see, Turkey has already invaded and occupied northwest of Syria. The US and the EU supported that Turkish invasion. It's funny that your media wants you to care about a Turkish invasion when it's on the east side of the Euphrates River, but not on the west side. Care? Not care. Compare the Kurdish populated areas of Syria to the location of the US occupation. Get the picture? It's not about the Kurds. There's oil on the east side of the Euphrates River. The US has been occupying Syria's oil fields for years, but the US doesn't need the oil. Syria doesn't even have that much. The US just doesn't want Syrians to have it. They want Syrian traffic to come to a halt, for its people to freeze in winter, and for Syria to never be able to rebuild. It's time to stop being emotionally manipulated by neocons and neoliberals into supporting humanitarian wars. If you really care about the Kurds, you'd be glad the US army is leaving so that the Syrian army can come and save the day. It's not your job to save the Kurds. It's the job of the Syrian army to protect all of Syria and all its minorities. It's the job of the Syrian army to defend the sovereignty of Syria against foreign invaders. Another lie you were told was that if the US leaves, ISIS will return. There are reports ISIS supposedly escaped the prison camps the Kurds were running. Coincidentally, the Kurds had been threatening to release ISIS prisoners in an attempt to blackmail Trump into staying in Syria. They could have easily handed those prisoners to the Syrian army, but they wanted to use them as a bargaining chip. They tell you it was the Kurds that defeated ISIS. But no, it was the Syrian army. The Kurds can't hold a single town on their own. Meanwhile, the Syrian army fought both ISIS and Al-Qaeda at the same time without US help. Instead, the US was bombing the Syrian army while it was in the midst of battle with ISIS. Not to mention that the US was also arming Al-Qaeda. It's ironic that those very same Al-Qaeda rebels that the US supported are joining the Turkish invasion against the Kurds. Clinton is crying crocodile tears about the Syrian rebels killing Kurds with the guns that she gave them. Do you still think the US is helping the Kurds? You see, unlike the Syrian army, the Kurds didn't fight ISIS for their country. They fought it because they thought they would get a reward at the end. But you have my solemn promise that the Syrian army and its allies will never allow ISIS and Al-Qaeda to re-emerge. Otherwise, how long will Americans be held hostage to the prospect of ISIS? Forever? That's what the neocons want, for US soldiers to occupy Syria forever. They wanted to cut up Syria into many pieces, one of which was Kurdistan. Why? For Israel's sake. This whole war has been for Israel's sake. You can see it in the headlines and you can read it in the tweets. Israel's strategy was the Audit Yunan plan, and it called for the creation of Kurdistan in order to divide and conquer Israel's neighbors. Even though Kurds live west of the Euphrates, Israel only wants Rojava to exist east of the Euphrates because that's the demarcation line for their planned Greater Israel. From the Nile to the Euphrates, the neocons were willing to throw away the lives of US soldiers for the sake of Israel. They were willing to throw away a 60-year-old alliance with Turkey, NATO's second largest army after the US, to join forces with a ragtag, anarcho-Marxist militia made up of teenage girls for Israel's sake. You were lied into believing that the Kurds were fighting for a national liberation. The truth is that the reason Kurds don't have a country is because they were nomadic until World War I. They never settled in one place and built cities. The land that they moved into was already inhabited by some of the oldest civilizations in the world: Anatolians, Syrians, Armenians, and Assyrians. They wanted to build a state at the expense of these indigenous people. Yet another lie you were being told is that Syria's Christians want the US to stay to help them stay safe from Turkey. No. The Assyrian Christians are saying they want the US out and the Syrian army in. The truth is, the Assyrian Christians were already being ethnically cleansed by the Kurdish militias, alongside other minorities. They've been shutting down their schools, forcibly disarming their militias. Assyrian Christian fighters have been assassinated because Kurds are not a majority in the areas that they want to control. They wanted to push out other minorities in order to become a majority. What is right is that every part of Syria belongs to every Syrian, no matter their ethnicity or religion. The Assyrian Christians say that the Syrian army are the only people they can trust to ensure this. The truth is, the US presence in Syria is what caused the Turkish invasion, because they armed Turkey's greatest enemies, the YPG or PKK terrorist organization. The truth is, the neocons created ISIS in Iraq and brought it to Syria, so they can use it as an excuse to occupy the country. The truth is, the neocons created Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan and gave guns to Al-Qaeda in Syria. They have made a mess, and the best thing they can do is go home. And friends, don't worry about us. No matter how long it takes, as promised, the Syrian army will liberate every inch of Syria. Genie Energy and the occupiers of the Golan Heights, are you listening? This has been Syrian Girl. Please subscribe for more updates.